the first thing you do when you're assessing the quality of a bolted anchor is looking at the actual bolts. So it's hard to tell the quality of the bolt because obviously the bolt is in the rock, but you want to look for visual clues. So looking at the bolt itself, below the hanger, if you're seeing any signs of rust. Next, make sure that they're screwed on properly and not rattling about. If they are rattling about, you can grab your nut tool or a wrench and tighten them up. So to make an anchor, a top rope anchor, a multi-pitch anchor, I'm going to take a double shoulder length sling, 2 non-locking carabiners. First, I'm going to place the carabiners on to the bolt hangers, ideally going in opposite direction. There you can see the hangers are facing in opposite direction. I'm going to take my double shoulder length sling, start by taking the bar tack and clipping it in really high, close to one of the beaners. Take the other side of the double shoulder length sling, clip it into the other carabiner, find the middle. Now I'm going to find the direction of pull. So if my climber is straight below me, this is the direction of pull. Now I'm going to isolate both bolts by tying a knot in the whole strand here. So direction of pull, figure 8 knot to finish it off. Another type of anchor that we use is using cams and nuts. So when you get to the top of your climb or if you're on a multi-pitch route, identify the crack that you're going to want to be situated below for your top rope or for your top down belay on a multi-pitch climb. So this crack here, it's high enough, it's in a good position. The rock, I'm going to check the rock integrity, make sure that I'm not going to be putting cams into a loose flake or to a broken rock, something where if I do put weight onto the anchor, the rock might break and the cams are going to be dislodged. So here, rock integrity is great. I'm going to start by putting my highest cams in first. So 1, and work my way down to where my focal point is going to be. 2, 3. I always recommend when you're starting out to go a 3-piece anchor. As you get more experience and have better judgment on the rock integrity and the cam placements, you may move to using a 2-piece anchor, but at this stage in the game, 3 pieces. So I've got my 3 pieces, perfectly placed cams, good rock, and now I'm going to equalize all the pieces of gear here. So I'm going to start with my double shoulder length sling. I'm going to clip it into the top cam. I'm going to get the bar tack right next to that top cam so I can get rid of that so it's not going to get in my way further down. I'm going to measure to that next cam below and I'm going to tie a small overhand knot in the sling so that way when I clip the sling in, when it's weighted, it's actually equalizing those 2 cams. Next, I'm going to find the end of the sling, clip it into the bottom cam, find my direction of pull, wherever it may be, and then I'm going to tie a figure 8 or an overhand knot to equalize the pieces of gear and make the whole system redundant. Tree anchors are probably the most simple anchor. Basically, you find a tree that is sizable enough and that is rooted strong enough into the ground that there's no chance it's going to pull it under any body weight or force that we're going to be able to create rock climbing, and you put a sling around it. It's the most simple anchor out there. So this tree, large tree, really strong root system. One rule of thumb that I like to use is basically the tree has to be larger than the size of my leg. I'm happy with the integrity of this tree. I'm going to take a double shoulder length sling again and simply just wrap it around the tree. I'm not going to tie a knot or do anything with the sling, and I'm going to clip both those strands, and there you have the anchor. That's all that you need to do. Now you don't need to tie a knot like you do with a bolted anchor or a gear anchor, because in this section it is equalized and the direction of pull is sort of irrelevant because of the nature of the anchor. Tying a knot actually will reduce the strength of the anchor up to 40% depending on what the material is. In addition to trees, we can also use big boulders or flakes as an anchor. So the biggest thing to consider when you're using a boulder or a flake as an anchor is obviously the integrity of that rock. If you generate a lot of force, are you going to dislodge that rock and your anchor's compromised, and you also have a rock falling down on your rock climber. So that's the number one thing to take into consideration. It's something that requires a lot of judgment and a lot of experience. So obviously this rock here is not attached to anything, it's just a big boulder sitting on a ledge. But that rock is so large and sitting on a flat enough piece of ground that there's no way that we're going to be able to generate enough force to dislodge it. So in this case, this would be a suitable anchor. The next thing to consider is how sharp the rock is. So if I take my cordelette surrounding the rock, is that cordelette going to be sitting on a sharp edge that could potentially cut and compromise our anchor? So looking all around at the edges of the rock that you're using. So assuming we're satisfied with the integrity of the rock, there's no sharp edges on it, I'll just take my 7mm cordelette creating loop with a single or double fisherman's knot, and I'm just going to take that loop that I've created, pass it around the boulder. As simple as that, I have my anchor.